Hey everybody, what's going on? Dace here, and today we're doing another Coffee and Shmups episode. This time I'm actually sitting down at my my station, my zone, because this episode is going to be more involved. It's one of those things where I could do point form notes, but there were just so many little things that I want to make sure I mention, so I figured, you know what, it's just going to be easier if I sit here and scroll through just to keep things fresh as I need them and all that kind of stuff. So before we begin, let's just pour the coffee. Oh man, I'm really looking forward to this. It is Saturday morning. I have the place to myself, which, as many of you know, is like one of the rarest things. And yeah, so anyway, let's just get right into this. So the title of this episode is The Effort Paradox. I'll get into that in just a second, but what I want to do to, I'm just going to sit cross-legged because that's more comfortable to me. I think what I'm going to do is first just say why I'm doing this episode. So over time, I've noticed a trend more and more throughout like comments in my YouTube videos where, excuse me. Oh wait, man, I'm getting ahead of myself. Jeez. Get that up here. Where I'll have like whatever put up, like a video of me doing like a clear or whatever, or I'll have a guide video up or whatever the case is, and someone will comment about how easy it looks or how effortless it looks. There was actually one, I think a month ago or so, where someone said how they felt disheartened because of how effortless I made the game look, or the part of the game that they were zeroing in on. And I think that, and this isn't to like zero in on anyone or say that like, oh, you shouldn't be feeling a certain way when you see games, like, but I do feel it's a great opportunity to see how we can improve the way we think about these games and our attachments to just different aspects and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm doing this episode. So let's look at what the effort paradox is. So the effort paradox is essentially the idea that the more effortless something looks, the more effort actually went into it. And I'm sure we can all grasp that without like relying on our imaginations or going too far. Like, it's just, that's a very simple idea. Like, if something looks super elegant or super precise every step of the way, chances are that took a ridiculous amount of time and energy. So I can understand why someone might feel disheartened, but that's only because, like, I know they're viewing it through a certain lens. They're viewing it a certain way, and because of that way, they're not recognizing what's available to them. And so part of this episode is, what can we do to overcome that sort of feeling? And it's not even feeling disheartened. Like, the definition of disheartened is to lose confidence or determination. But people could, let's say, just feel like general frustration or any other sort of emotions that may get stirred up when we see someone performing something at a certain high, like a high skill level or whatever, and we know we're not at that same level, or we know we're struggling with the same part of the game, or whatever the case is. So if we want to overcome feeling disheartened or anything that limits us instead of empowering ourselves, the first step is, of course, changing our perspective. That is a huge thing that kind of just transforms the entire picture for us and just makes everything healthier all the way around going forward. And there's an easy way to do that. Like, I came up with an idea yesterday for this topic, which revolves thinking about things in terms of like two doorways. Okay, so let's say you're in this situation, you've just seen a high level performance, and you have the choice between so yeah, there are two doors. One is closed and locked, but there's a window, and you can see through the window into the room at this thing happening, this high level performance. The other door is wide open. If you are putting yourself in front of the door that is closed, but you're seeing what's happening, then of course it's going to take a toll on you in a negative way, because you're choosing to view it as something beyond you or something you don't have access to. You can't get to it because the door's locked. You can see what's happening, it looks amazing, but you recognize that, oh man, there's no way to get there, or at least it might look like that. But here's the thing, it's not that you can't do these things, it's just that you haven't made the investment that the other person has, which you're witnessing them doing this stuff. So on the other hand, if you put yourself in front of the door that's wide open, you can see everything that's happening in there, and even if it looks wild or beyond you or whatever the case is, you know that it's not beyond you. You have access to it. All you need to do is walk in. It's an opportunity, not a barrier. You just need to go into that room, and there's nothing stopping you from doing that. And here's an interesting thought that came to mind too when I started thinking about this more. When you're putting yourself in front of the door that's wide open, then feeling disheartened doesn't, like, first off, it has no place, and even if it did, it doesn't make any sense, because everything you're witnessing happening in that room is only useful information or ideas that you can use to your advantage. It's nothing but a source of empowerment. So for me, like I said before, how like I can understand why people would feel that way, but it's not something I can relate to, because my mind doesn't operate along the lines of feeling discouraged about stuff like that. If I see someone performing something at a high level, to me, that's an opportunity to be inspired and get excited, because it's like, wow, what things can I begin exploring? How can I use this information to improve what I'm currently doing, or like fit it into like my routing or just my overall way of thinking about the game? And it's just insane how useful the information is, and you can extract it. There's nothing stopping you from extracting information from situations like that. So to me, there's no reason to possibly feel disheartened, because it's nothing but a benefit when you can see that kind of stuff happening. It's just what you want to do with it. I remember a time when Autumn, I forget what clear, sometimes when I have like a crazy clear, like Visara 2 or whatever, I'll watch it with Autumn, and yeah, I don't recall which one it was, but she said like, wow, I make it look so easy. And my response in situations like that, or just other times, is that it's simple, not easy. Simple in the sense that when I have broken things down to like an absolute science, everything is laid out in a very simple way. It's like, when you're first getting into it, it's overwhelming, because like all of these steps need to be perfected, or at least close to perfect to get through, of course. But it's gonna feel crazy, because it's all of these things that need to happen one after another. And if it's like 100 steps in a single stage or whatever, then yeah, that's gonna feel hard or whatever. But at its core, it's just very simple, tiny things all strung together. It's not easy in the sense though, because like, even though it's simple, it's not easy, because as a player, everything depends on you properly going through all of those steps sequentially. But what I think I need to start saying going forward is that it's simple, not easy, but easier and easier and easier. And that goes on for eternity. And here's an example. Like, I'm always referencing Rolling Gunner, because that's just the best example I can really give. It's the deepest I've ever gone with a game, and I absolutely love it. So let's use stage 3 as an example. When I first got to that stage, it was like just the most insane thing to begin wrapping my mind around, because enemies come from every direction. Based on the pacing and the flow, it's just like, how do you possibly get a handle on like how to budget your gauge so that you can be firing things off? And like, if you're not fully immersed in the mechanics, then you're not going to be nearly resource efficient and whatnot as you would be if you really had that down. And so it was like a struggle. Like, I put, like, not all at once, of course, but like a solid 3 weeks, easily 3 weeks, into a 5-minute stage, just to break everything down to a completely understood science, so that I could go through that stage, no bomb, no miss. And even at that point, like when I cleared at expert mode earlier this year, even with that knowledge and awareness, there were still a few points where it's like, oh man, like even though I'm pretty consistent, there are those 2 or 3 points where if I'm going to mess up in this stage, it's going to be there. And what's interesting is that when I jump into it now, because I've been playing it the last week or so, just experimenting with some new ideas and whatnot. And what's interesting is I'm even better at stage 3 now. And all of those moments where there was a chance of messing up the stage, those are completely gone. There's no part of me that goes into that level like feeling a certain way where it's like, oh man, I gotta be really careful. It's just like I get in there, I know what to do, and it happens. And even if something isn't done to 100%, it's not messed up in a way where the rest of the stage suffers. It's like, okay, so I didn't get as many medals soaked up as I thought I might, but it's not an issue because it doesn't change anything that happens. It's still enough that I can just keep cruising. And I'm not saying this to be like, oh, look at me. I'm just saying that like when, like, this is just the truth of the matter. Like when you pay such a ridiculously high price, your time, energy, and like dedication, like everything that you pour into it, that is just the result. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're seeing someone who's performing something at a higher level, and you're thinking like, oh man, like you don't feel like you're there, that you could get there. It's just like you can totally get there. It's just you just need to put yourself into that mode to get there, if that's what you want to do. I'm not saying most people are not going to want to put 3 weeks into a single stage, let alone hundreds of hours into a single game spanning 2, 3, 4 months, whatever the case is. Okay. Yeah, like no one needs to do that sort of thing. I do it because I love sinking in deep. Like, and again, like I don't, like I've said this in other videos, I mean, like I don't apply this to every single game because I don't resonate with every single game. But when I do love a game to such a degree, I just want to do nothing but pump time into it and just be immersed and just connect with the game and become a part of it. And so for me, the greatest joy is not getting the clear, but the journey itself, like the journey of discovery, everything I can learn, everything, like all the moments of figuring things out, all the breakthroughs, all the progression that I get to witness as I go through all of these motions. That's the true, like the highlight, like that cannot be traded for anything. It's just one of those things where it's just, yeah, it's incredibly rewarding. Kind of like bring everything around. When you see a high level performance, you don't need to feel disheartened or frustrated or less than the person that you're watching. You just need to ask yourself, are you willing to pay the price to reach that performance level? And again, it doesn't matter whether the answer is yes or no. It's like, do whatever you want with these games. I'm just saying, instead of feeling that way, just think about the fact that, okay, effortless means an insane price to be paid. Like there might be some things out in the world where effortless actually did require no effort at all. Like if I just toss a ball, it's like, okay, great, that was effortless. Anyone can do that. But I'm talking like anything where it's actually a challenge and it actually takes everything you can possibly muster to pull it off and to like just get to a point where it's a breeze for you. I think the key takeaways are just I would encourage people not to make it about anything negative or feeling like down to one degree or another, when you can see it as a source of inspiration and just get stoked about the possibility. Because even if you're not, like, let's say you see someone do something amazing, like a no bomb, no miss of like a certain boss or something, or like a full game. It's like, you don't even have to push things that far. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. Even if you're taking little bits and pieces that you can use so that you can at least clear a game or do it without losing as many lives if you want to like start improving and whatnot, then that's great too. Just like whenever it comes to episodes like this, or a run you are watching, whether it's my channel or anyone else's that's doing stuff like this, take what is going to be useful to you, and you don't need to really care about the rest. If you don't resonate with a certain idea, or you see, let's say, me doing something in one of my guide videos, but you want to do it differently in your own run, then great. Do what is going to be, I want to say, comfortable, but at the same time, like, there's a whole topic of like pushing outside of your comfort zone, which we'll get into another time. Like it's however you want to look at it, and it will be however you look at it. If you see it as a barrier, it's going to be a barrier. If you see it as a wide open door and you can just cruise right on in whenever you want, guess what? You can go in, you can get to work, you can just start seeing progress. I'm not even kidding. So yeah, the effort paradox. You are more than welcome to feel disheartened, but it really serves no purpose, and it doesn't make sense to feel less determined or less confident when you are actually being equipped with more information as to what is possible or how you can do things. So if anything, you should feel more confident and more determined because of that, because of seeing like high level performance or whatever. Like just from the rolling gunner example, is that the things that you feel are a struggle now, or that you need to be like overly careful about when you're navigating this stage or that stage, if you stick with it long enough and you commit to like the learning and just cleaning things up, those things will eventually be like things you don't even need to think about. You'll just be able to do it. Whereas before it was like, oh man, this big deal. Now it's like, oh, cool. It's like, yeah, no big deal. Oh, I'm just going to do it because I've done it 1,000 times. I couldn't even tell you how many times I've done stage 3, for instance, but it's a ridiculous amount. And I love it. I still, like what I'm going to do after this episode is I'm going to boot up stage 3 and just rip through it a whole bunch of times because I'm just loving it. So anyway, yeah, that's enough blabbing. I think I've gotten the points across. Let me know what you think in the comments below. A huge thanks to, because I had like a delay in getting this episode recorded. Last month we had Scowsh and Spiders support on Coffee, so that is super awesome. Really appreciate that. So thank you both for that contribution. Cannot thank you enough, actually, for all of that you guys bring to the table. And everyone else, of course, I really appreciate everyone who pops in, shares comments, all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Have a stellar day. Enjoy some coffee if you drink coffee this weekend or just in general. And yeah, we'll see you next time.